many times have you beaten this clown anyway? 3. Really? Only 3? Funny. Seemed like more.
That's right, there's the big news. Crash for a brand new Crash game. It is coming this October, and right now I am joined by Paul from Toys for Bob to tell us about the brand new Crash game. Paul, we have been waiting for so long for something new from Crash. Of course, Activision has done some amazing remasters of the Crash trilogy and CTR, but this is a brand new Crash game built from the ground up.
That's right. It's hard to believe, but it's been over 10 years since we've seen an original new entry into the series, so I'm delighted to finally unveil this secret that we've been sitting on for a while. It's the brand new Crash 4, It's About Time. And it's a play on the fact that we've been waiting for so long, but also it's a game that's literally about time.
Yeah, I want to get into it because the trailer is filled with so much information. I mean, playable Neo Cortex, Coco, Crash, but I'm curious, like, what, you guys have worked on, the remasters of Crash, but now to start with a new game, I'm sure so much trepidation about, like, what's going to be a worthy, follow-on, calling it Crash 4. How did you guys approach this? Like, what kind of game did you want to build?
Yeah, I guess the first thing is we asked ourselves, where did we want to start? And though technically this is the 8th game in the series, all of the fan reception that was coming out of the Insane trilogy, we wanted to go back to the original trilogy and start from that. We're deliberately calling this Crash 4 because we want to key it off of the original trilogy that was developed by Naughty Dog. And that was certainly a high point in the series, both critically and commercially. And so that's where the events are going to key off of. We're starting right at the end of that when Dr. Neocortex, Entropy, and Uga Uga have been banished to this distant planet, and they've finally found a way, after many fruitless attempts, they've found a way to break out, and in doing so, they've torn this gigantic hole in the universe and exposed the fact that there's a multiverse. So it's going to be up to the Bandicoots, Crash, and Coco to restore that order by reuniting the 4 great quantum masks.
The gameplay style, I think, a lot of people were probably wondering, hey, Crash in 2020, how much of it is, the more linear, classic Crash levels, and of course now, like, people wonder, like, is it an open world Crash game? How are you doing it? Like, tell us about balancing kind of the old style of gameplay, which is certainly not broken. We love it, versus the tendency to do, new styles of gameplay. Based on the trailer, it looks like you're being kind of still faithful to the original style of Crash versus making it some big, 3D open world. But is that correct? Like, how did you approach the actual style of the gameplay?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I think what we've heard was that people have found that style of gameplay to be really refreshing to return to, and so we wanted to key off of that. And when we observe some of the other games and platforms and how they've evolved over time, you're totally right. They've gone to a place where they're a little bit more open in nature, and as a consequence, the challenges and things that you interact with are a little bit more sparse and spread out. It encourages exploration, and maybe there's a little bit more focus on collection and combat. But when we think about classic Crash gameplay, it's dense and it's focused, and it's really the streams of hazards and the challenges, the platforming challenges, they come and there's almost a rhythmic quality to it and how reliable it is. And I know that for me, when I learn a level and I understand the nuance of the timing and the placement of all the different hazards, you can enter into a sort of flow state when you understand that kind of musicality.
Multiple playable characters. How are you doing that? Is it kind of like by level, or like we saw Coco and Neo playable in there? How does that work sort of in the scheme of the gameplay?
So Crash and Coco, you're going to be able to choose between them at any point in time, and they share the same moveset. Over the course of the adventure, you're going to encounter some new friends, some familiar faces, and you're right, there's going to be some new playable characters. We're teasing today Dr. Neocortex. He's got a completely different moveset from Crash and Coco. So where the Bandicoots kind of barrel through and they've got the ability to spin and slide and belly slam, Dr. Neocortex is he's a little bit more of a cerebral character. He's a mad scientist. He's got inventions, and he relies on his intellect. So he's got a ray gun that he carries around with him. And that ray gun has the ability to transmogrify hazards and enemies into platforms. And he can choose between changing them into a static solid platform or a bouncy platform that gives him access to higher elevations. So his gameplay and the levels that are built specifically for his moveset is going to be a completely different flavor. It's going to be a little bit more strategic, a little bit more cerebral, and I think players are going to have to be a little bit more thoughtful about when to encounter a hazard, whether or not to change it into a platform, and what type of platform they're going to need at that point in the obstacle.
Wow, it seems ambitious that you're adding more elements to it, and then also you mentioned the masks. How do those work?
So the quantum masks, there's 4 of them in this game, and over the course of the adventure, they're scattered across the universe. You're going to have to rescue them from the clutches of certain bosses, both familiar and new. The quantum masks, 2 of them that we're talking about today, is the time mask and the gravity mask. And masks in this franchise, they've got a lot of personality. They've got their own names and their own voices and their own powers.
Clutches of certain bosses,
so the time mask, her name
the
is
quantum mask, 2 of them that we're talking about today,
and
is
when
the time
Crash
mask and gravity mask. And masks
he's got the
in
ability
this franchise, they've got a lot of personality, they've got their own names and their own voices and their own powers.
Just way
So
too fast to
time
interface
mask,
with.
her
At
name
normal
is
speeds, he's going to be able to slow things down and then get past those obstacles. And
uses
in addition to that, he'll
he's
be
got
able
the
to get
ability to
past
slow down
nitro
time
points,
to
which have
fall.
traditionally been
So
a
for
one-hit,
obstacles that
one-kill
are
type of thing.
beyond,
But with the
just
power
way
of
too
time, he's
fast
going to be
to
able to
interface
slow
with,
things down,
at normal
trigger
speeds,
that
he's going to be able to
explosive,
slow
and then
things
get
down
out
and then
just
get past
barely
those
before
obstacles.
that explosion
And
obliterates everything.
in addition to that, he'll be able to get past
The
nitro
second
breaks, which have
mask
traditionally
is
been
the gravity
a
mask,
one-hit,
and his name
one-kill
is
type of
Ika
thing. But
So
with
when
the power of
Crash
time, he's
dawns
going to be
on
able to slow
Ika,
things
he's going to
down,
be able to
trigger
flip
that
the
explosive,
direction
and then
of
get out
gravity
just barely
and walk
before
on the
that
top of
explosion
ceilings,
obliterates everything in its
knock
path.
upside down underneath
The
platforms to get
second
past
mask is
impossible
the gravity mask,
I'm
and his
really
name is
excited to play
Ika.
this, and again, I
So when
was
Crash
playing
dawns on
Crash back when the
Ika,
original
he's going to
PlayStation
be
first
able
came
to
out,
flip
and
direction of
Activision's done a great
gravity
job with
and
the
walk on the top
remasters,
of
but to
ceilings,
have a totally new game,
walk
I
upside
think is
down
what everyone
underneath
was hoping
platforms to get
for,
past
and
impossible.
we're bringing it to life. So congrats for doing this, and thanks for doing it even from a work from home situation. It's awesome to see, and can't wait to play it later this year.
Thanks for having me. It's a great pleasure, and I think it's an exciting time for games. And I'm
congrats
so
for
glad
doing
that we
this,
could
and thanks for doing it even
reintroduce
from a work from home
Crash, a new
situation.
version, and a new
It's
adventure
awesome to see, and
at this
can't
time.
wait to get to play it later this year.